But our next guest, Landon, he went to high school in North Carolina. He raced in what's now called the ARCA Series, and he was on the path to NASCAR before he took a slight turn to Australia, where he most recently defeated the king of the land down under and everyone's favorite acronym race car driver, SVG, also known as Shane Van Gisbergen. It's the 2023 Supercars champion, Brodie Kostecki, here on the Money Lap Live. Welcome, my man. Congratulations. What an incredible championship. That has to feel good.
Yeah, it's been a pretty good year for myself. And g'day, guys. It's pretty early in the morning here. So to the top of the morning, 2 years.
Yeah,
so I didn't know where you were. Yeah, I didn't know you were going to be over there. I thought there was a chance you were over here in America for this. So you got up early. We really appreciate that. Or up late, I guess I should say. One of the two.
Yeah, no, it's 5 a.m. here now, so it's actually not too bad.
Yeah.
Like I get up at 6, so it's not that bad.
So my
what's funny is
for that time.
I'm going to be completely honest. I thought I knew a little bit about you, and I knew what you've been up to. I knew your success of the season, where you came from, your appearance in NASCAR. But gosh, by listening to your background and Parker doing an incredible job introducing you, I was not sure if you were going to have an Australian accent or a regular American English accent.
To be honest, it actually switches. So when I come over this year to race at Indianapolis for my one-off Cup race, I was in North Carolina again for I think 2.5 weeks, and leading up to the event, working closely with everyone at RCR and everyone at the Chevrolet Tech Center, and my accent really came back pretty quick, which was surprising. And I had some of my colleagues from Australia that I work closely with at Erebus, my crew chief or engineer, as we call it down here, George Cummins, and he was shocked. Like in 3 days, he's like, "Oh, you've completely converted. It's pretty funny." In the space of 3 days. So yeah, it was I guess that was pretty funny.
When you go to welcome North Carolina, it's almost a given that you're going to adopt some sort of accent in that place. Having spent a fair amount of time up there.
Yeah, I lived in California a year first, and I didn't really have to. But when I moved to North Carolina, it was just easier to start learning the lingo.
Definitely. I think there's a lot to unpack with you, and especially for a lot of our listeners and viewers, in that you did have that background of coming over here to America and then went back to Australia to be in the Supercars. But really, just the last 3 years, you finished 9th in the championship a couple of years ago. You then finished 7th, and this year, the championship. I mean, that's a pretty fast accession from, being in the top 10 to being the dominant and champion that you were this year. What made that happen? What precipitated that? What has changed for you over these years? And what have you felt like led to you being able to get this championship and find that performance?
Yeah, it's sort of a pretty, I guess, when you look back at our last stats, even the team that I'm driving for, Erebus, we sort of, we had some really good results throughout the year, but we were never really that kind of, the consistent team that was always, in the top 3, I guess, front running team. But, much like NASCAR, we had a massive restructure within our series, and we got new cars. And to be honest, that really helped our team out a lot. The development costs are all gone. Everyone gets the same equipment, under them, and it's up to the driver and I guess their crew chief to, bring out the maximum, potential in that car. And, I suppose our racing down here is a bit different than the racing in America. We go to, obviously all road courses. So, and I guess we were just able to, maximize the, the car that was below us. And we had a really good year, no mistakes, just really consistent, no DNFs. And, I think I won the pole award for the year. So, qualified the best all year. And that sort of really just kicked off our season, which was awesome.
I want to talk a little bit about the difference in racing between supercars and what you've experienced in NASCAR. And obviously, hearing from SVG, I'm sure you've talked to him plenty about his experience, and even one kind of specific question about your thoughts on him winning in Chicago and your perception of that, because you know obviously you watched him win and then you made your start, and so I want to hear about all those experiences, but I'm also curious if you think, you know, what was going on there. Did he catch us all off guard, being, you know, such a new event and NASCAR really never being on a street circuit before, and that sort of being your guys' bread and butter? Like, what's your analysis of that?
Yeah, to be honest, you know, when I heard that Chicago was going to be on the NASCAR schedule, was, you know, the first ever street circuit that NASCAR was going to, and, you know, then obviously Shane announcing that he was going over, you know, I was actually really eager to see how it all sort of played out. I knew that he was going to probably reach some sort of, you know, success, that being in the top 5 or the top 3, but, you know, these circuits, street circuits, we race at them, you know, 4 or 5 times a year, and to be honest, it's a road course, but it's honestly nothing like a road course in the sense of, you know, you go to a road course, you can you know, you can learn all your braking markers, and there's really minimal risk of, you know, riding the car off and not being able to compete for the rest of the weekend. So, you know, your I guess your you know, preparation and you know, your practice time is, you know, vital to, you know, getting up to speed quick. And, you know, that's something that we have probably very good experience with, you know, racing so many street circuits down here. So I think, you know, watching him, you know, I watched every single session that he was in, and just watching him get up to speed, it was pretty cool to see, you know, the differences. But I don't think he'll have it that easy, you know, next year.
Hey, actually,
what do you
just to
think about the
continue on that,
differences in racing style there? Oh, go ahead, Parker.
well, just I wanted to kind of go down that path of the street courses, in that you mentioned your guys' experience. I've been watching V8 Supercars and what's now Supercars since 2005, 2006. It's my favorite racing in the whole world. So you've lived a dream of mine, by the way, getting to do both. But the thing I always found fascinating was what you mentioned, which is the risk quotient that you have at a street course versus a road course, and that you guys often didn't have backup cars. And I can remember Jamie Whincup wrecking in practice one week and not being able to race in the actual race as he's going in to win. He's tear of championships, right? Over here, there's the backup car. But one of the things I found amazing was when I watched Supercars and what you guys do, it's you know, there was years of touching the mirror on the wall, right? And knocking, and that meant, okay, now I'm close enough. And, you know, you guys just have such a precision ability on those street courses. Is there something driving wise? You mentioned like the risk quotient. Is there something you feel like, hey, when we go to those places, what I've learned now being a champion of Supercars is that we do this really well. We do, you know, this is what we focus on a street course versus a road course that allows us to be so precision and to take, you know, get to that 100% of risk without overstepping it.
Yeah, you know, I think so. It's you know, we just raced at Adelaide on the weekend for our season finale, which is a street circuit, and you know, we had you know, three practice sessions, you know, 45 minutes each, and you know, then 2 qualifying sessions for both races, and then a top 10 shootout for both. So honestly, we get a lot of track time at those venues, and so that, you know, allows us to, you know, I guess test the limits and, you know, build up our confidence for those tracks. But I think, you know, when they went to, you know, Chicago, it was, you know, the weather played a lot into it, and, you know, obviously it was actually pretty short track time for the drivers to actually learn the track and actually put rubber down as well, which is a big thing. You know, when we go to our street circuits, the track will evolve, you know, a second and a half, 2 seconds, you know, just with rubber. But, you know, to be honest, most of the drivers that go to these tracks now, we're within 2/10 of what we can do on our first 5 laps. It's just, you just have to get up to speed to be competitive, and you know, to get on the you know, front side of, you know, being able to tune the car and whatnot. So that's what's, you know, pretty cool about, I guess, you know, what we do down here is just everyone's, you know, just, I guess, evolved and, you know, gotten really confident at these tracks, and it's yeah, everyone's pushing each other.
So let's talk about this season. You obviously were the champion, and it was a very competitive season. It was the Gen 3 car you guys have. You mentioned it sort of similar to what we've gone to in NASCAR, the next gen car. But I think some of the races I watched this year were so close, and you guys are just, you know, have some amazing finishes. What are some moments this year that just stuck out to you as you rumbled towards this championship that you're like, yep, we're going to get this thing done, and we've got the speed, and we're going to continue to show this all at the end of the season to get this championship.
Yeah, I think, we have a preseason test that we have teams that are based in Queensland, which is two states above where my team's from, which is in Melbourne. And we have a preseason test, and, we went to our test for our state, and, we rolled the cars out, and I felt, pretty comfortable straight away. And it's hard to tell, at a test if, what tires are people on and whatnot, but I just, sort of felt pretty comfortable straight away. And we're, talking to the team, and I said, if it goes like today, I think we'll have a pretty good year. And then we went to the first track, which was Newcastle, and it's just street circuit, of course, because it's supercars. And we put it on pole for the first ever qualifying session for Gen 3, and then it was like, it's like actually pretty real, like we're really good. And race didn't quite go to plan. I think we finished that race, but it was like, I guess that first qualifying session for the year where we were able to stick it on pole, that really sort of, solidified in me that, that we could do it if we just, I guess, if we just executed for the whole year, which we're able to do, which was, really cool.
So going back to the idea of the difference in styles between, supercars and your experience in NASCAR, what's your assessment of that? I mean, obviously in supercars, there's still some sort of conduct regulations, and we saw in the championship race a penalty. In NASCAR, we don't necessarily have that type of a penalty. It's a little bit different. So what's your what was your give me your experience there?
Yeah, so I grew up in, I guess, North Carolina, and raced, late models, and raced at Hickory, and, I guess, raced the ARCA series now a bit. And, so when I come back to supercars, the racing rules are a lot different here in Australia. Like, we're not allowed to move someone out the way. We're not allowed to do any front to rear bumper contact at all. And if you do that, it's generally a 5 or a 10-second penalty post race, or you have to serve it in a pit stop. So, but to be honest, the racing down here is pretty hard regardless. I mean, it seems like doors are open, so you're happy to door anyone, or stick it up the inside, and you're allowed to rub side to side is not a problem. But but the NASCAR guys, their rules are a lot more open, but it's built on respect. So, and they race 36 times a year, so if you wreck someone one week, you're probably going to get wrecked next week. So the racing's kind of similar in that aspect. We're bound by rules, but NASCAR, those guys are bound by respect. So it's kind of similar in a way, the racing.
What do you think is the right way?
I think the right way is probably is probably the way that you guys do it, to be honest. I think rules are great and all, and but it's, at the end of the day, it's about the show that gets put on for, I guess, the people that watch it at home, and that go to the race. And there's been times this year that the races could have been better in our sport, if you're allowed a little bit of front to rear. If we're like, I can block quite heavily, and the guy behind me can't do much about it. So as long as I stay within the rules of blocking, it's pretty hard for the guy behind to do something about it, which was Shane one of those races. But that's what's different with you guys, is you've seen some of those best finishes. Some of the highlight reels of some of the races in NASCAR have been some bump and runs, and vice versa.
Mm-hmm. Well, and regardless of the series, with the rules or without the rules, it's funny how much moving people and wrecking, it's exciting, it's part of the racing, it happens, but boy, does it look good when there's just a good, clean, hard race for the win, right? Like, that's what we truly, as fans and as racers, we truly applaud that more than a wreck for the win, is just seeing a good, clean, hard race for the win.
Yeah, you're seeing it on the screen right now, by the way. You guys, you had one this year. That was a pretty clean race.
Yeah, so this was, but obviously, like you can see me, and I'm just like literally the white lining everywhere, and at the time, it's just like I know that he can't actually bump me or move me wide anywhere, and I did this for like 3 or 4 laps. But if I was to do this, obviously in America, I'd probably end up in the sand trap that's right ahead of me, straight ahead. But yeah, I suppose like you said, it's you can change every scenario, if the rules were different. So I guess it's hard. We have had some really good races this year, which has been really cool. So but like as you can see here, he's just hitting me, but he can't pass me, otherwise he gets a penalty. But right now he's just trying to literally heat my rear tires up so he can get by me 3 corners later, because my rear tires are melted. So I guess there is that aspect as well. It's a bit more tactical, and yeah, it's you can't really wreck someone for the win.
So he can make
wow.
contact, but he just can't pass you from the contact.
Yeah, yep, that's correct. So yeah, you'll even see here, like I'll try prop him here, and he'll be into my rear bar here just while I'm on throttle, and yeah, just heating up my rear tires. So yeah, as long as he doesn't pass me, directly after contact, it can be 2 corners later, it's fine. So like even here again, it's just hard into it, heating up the rears. So.
For those listening did not see the video, this is epic. You got to check it out on our YouTube. You describing this finish. What track was this again? I can't remember the name.
So this is at Perth.
That's right.
So this is actually where I was born. So this is my hometown event. Hence why I'm white lining everywhere trying to win. But
that's so awesome. So I want to talk a little bit about the. Oh wow, you guys got into each other here as we're watching this video. It's pretty awesome. But this Gen 3 car compared to the next gen car, you've actually driven both. What's amazing to me when I watch your guys' races is how close you can follow each other. And you're not as what it seems to be as aero affected. There does seem to be some tire fall off. You are able to just continue. I see Supercars races that end up with 5 cars in almost a line in a battle pack. Now look at the NASCAR Cup Series right now with this next gen car. That doesn't happen on the road courses. These 2 cars are similar in a lot of ways. There was a lot of discussion that, the next gen car was almost designed in intention to be like what you guys have in Supercars, but we have not gotten the same result. Your cars also look even softer in their suspension and how they move around, more dynamic. So now that you've been a part of both, what is the big differences here? And, how do you have a suggestion of how the NASCAR next gen car could be more like the Gen 3 car at road courses?
Yeah, to be honest, that's a pretty hard one. But I think for us, our category did, we were trying to reduce the aero to be able to follow, and we've had some like awesome racing this year at a lot of tracks where we haven't been able to pass before. Thanks to taking a lot of the aero off, and the racing has been really good. We've had a few little dramas, with the brakes, with following someone for 10+ laps, and the brakes fading. Just from getting hot, from the car behind. But honestly, it's pretty hard to fix that issue. When I raced at Indy, to be honest, it wasn't that bad when I was following someone, but the brakes was the biggest thing that I noticed. And it's, we run the same size wheel as a NASCAR Cup car does, and the brakes are actually very similar, if not the same. From a supercar or a cup car, and the cup car I think is like 400-500 pounds heavier than a supercar. So trying to add all that into it, and then the road course factor of braking everywhere, those things just compound on each other. And it's honestly, I don't know, it's hard to build a car that's going to be good for ovals and then go to a road course and then be good at a road course as well, being sort of that heavy. So yeah, I'm not really too sure what the answer would be, but when I drove, I guess the cup car, it was it was a lot stiffer, and it was a lot stiffer than I actually anticipated it was going to be, which was something that really surprised me.
And one of the things that they have been looking at and they're doing right now is they're testing just removing downforce from this car, and it has an underbody aero. You mentioned the same wheel. I thought that the supercar actually had a smaller tire, though. Is that incorrect?
Yeah, so it's got a smaller width tire, but I think diameter is pretty similar to the cup car.
Got it. And that to me, when I watch your races, the supercars, it just looks like such a dynamic car. It's moving around. You mentioned it. This cup car was stiffer. And I guess some of it might be just even that smaller, skinnier tire that's allowing you guys to have the car wiggles a little bit more. You just don't see that out of a cup car right now. It's a very static, rigid car. That seems, and I watch your racing and I'm like, wait a second, that's the template. Just make it do that. And I feel like as a driver, like it would be a more enjoyable driving experience in having it more like a supercar on a road course.
Yeah, I would say so. To be honest, I haven't driven enough of the Cup car, at different, I guess, tracks. Like I drove at Indy and I did have to start from the back and come through, but I didn't really get, like, I guess I actually followed William Byron for about 20 or so plus laps, and we were pretty much in line. And I guess in my category down here, we're sort of when we get behind someone, and if we have to follow someone through, we never follow directly behind someone. We always give a bit of a gap to try to keep everything cool and not overheat the tires. So I didn't really experience too much of I guess the dirty air aspect, to be honest. But the only thing I really did notice was the brakes was was a big thing that I noticed at the road courses. When you're behind someone, you get what we call down here as ghost pedal, where the brakes just don't really do anything.
Landon, I think just one more thing on that and braking. So when Shane came over here, and I wanted to go down this path with you because I just find this so fascinating. And Landon and I love talking about driving. So obviously we're two drivers. We like to talk about the process as you as a driver. But one of the most fascinating things that Shane showed the world over here that we've known for a while from watching Supercars, that he said we had a foot fetish in the USA, basically, was the idea that there's right foot braking. And that I think, it wasn't fair to say that, because when you look at racing over in America and Europe for the last better part of 20 years, it has all shifted to left foot braking. That has just become what the norm is. But for whatever reason, because of the differential and the design of your cars are there, right foot braking stayed prevalent. You mentioned braking, you mentioned brakes. Are you a right foot braker? Did you do that in NASCAR? Do we have a foot fetish over here? I don't know. No, I'm just saying. I'm kidding. But no, really, I'm really curious, what your style is from where you started over here in the ARCA series to then going back to Supercars and then driving the Cup car.
Yeah, so every single driver in the Supercars category down here, they all right foot brake, and it's mainly to do with how our car is sort of, how it behaves when you first brake and whatnot. It's very pitch sensitive and whatnot. So that's why everyone right foot brakes down here, and you pretty much have to do it to be fast. And when we go to so many street circuits and the tracks are very bumpy under brakes, so a lot of the drivers, including Shane, myself, we actually use the clutch under brakes to help rear locking at times, even when it's raining, and whatnot. And when I raced in America, on the ovals and whatnot, I was left foot braking, and I was racing late models and ARCA and whatnot. But when I come back to Australia, just you just have to right foot brake to be fast.
I think the key to it there is the clutch pedal, and I think that's why right foot braking. Outside of the use of the clutch pedal, the right foot braking does help with drivers with kind of just differentiating the pedal they're using in that little bit of period, whether you're rolling or not, rushing to throttle. But even that, I think, can be trained with the left foot braking, because I'm a left foot braker, and so I train myself to not rush the throttle or whatever. But so I do think on oval racing and tracks where the shifting is not, or threshold braking is not a factor, I do think that left foot braking is better. But for road course racing, threshold braking, by left foot braking and taking the clutch out of play, you're just giving up a tool. And I think that NASCAR drivers, if I had to make a guess on what I think happened over the last couple decades, is we don't run a lot of road courses. We didn't for decades. We only ran 2 road courses a year, right? We had road course ringers for a while come in, and they were competitive, right? Remember Ron Fellows and Boris said for years they would come in and they were very competitive with their style of driving. But as NASCAR became more and more full-time drivers, less road course ringers, I think our, native drivers like Jeff Gordon were, we're getting these road courses figured out. We went to the same two tracks every year. So our native drivers got pretty darn good at those tracks. Our transmissions improved. So, you could shift without the clutch now. I think that we got lazy and just didn't train right foot braking because we didn't need to, because our competition, none of our competition was right foot braking anymore. Right. We didn't have ringers come in. And I think we just got to the point where there's probably speed out there that we weren't looking for because we only raced twice a year and the cars were catered to us. And I think SVG was probably a big wake up call to that in Chicago, because I think the right way to threshold brake a car is to use all the tools at your disposal, which includes the clutch.
Yeah, I would say I wouldn't say lazy, but I would probably say, like I raced, I guess the ARCA series. I raced at Watkins Glen, and I was on the pole there by a fair margin, and I was left foot braking back then. And to be honest, like it was a 4-speed transmission, so you were barely shifting the lap. You were maybe shifting down one gear
Right.
or 2 gears, and that's a big thing why we right foot brake is we have a 6-speed sequential gearbox. So when we're going down into a braking zone, we're going down 5 gears, sometimes from 6th to 1st. And you need all the help you can getting down to first gear with the clutch, to not rear lock. So and I guess when I drove the Cup car at Indy, it's a 5-speed, but I noticed the shifting's a lot slower, and there's just because of not having that that one extra gear, which was that was something that was a lot different for me. So I probably wouldn't call it lazy. I would call it I guess not really a gain in the past to do it. And the brake pedal goes very long in a Cup car as well, and it would have gone even longer with the previous cars, because the braking's the braking system was smaller because the wheels were smaller. So that changes your offset from from when you get a heel toe. So there's a lot of those things that factor into being able to do it consistently. So I'm not sure how much it would be worth. Like at Sonoma, I don't know if it's actually worth a whole lot, because you're not really in too many heavy braking zones. But Chicago, I can definitely see how it's a pretty big gain.
For sure.
And there's a lot of stop and go corners, and going down 4 gears at a time.
I hate to dwell on this, but I am fascinated, my man. I've always wanted to have this discussion, so I do appreciate you indulging us with this talk of braking. Because I just have one more thing to what you just talked about, and I never thought about how many gears you had to go through with the sequential box. But the thing that really sticks out to me, you mentioned pitch and like what's happening when you're getting on the brake. But that's something you focus on the supercars. Is that something that just in your limited experience in the next gen car, and we can talk about as we go forward here, what you're looking to do in 2024 in racing supercars and coming over and doing more starts in NASCAR, are you focused on the pitch in the Cup car? And is that something that, or is it so stiff it doesn't matter sort of thing, and that sort of negates that reasoning for using the right foot braking?
Yeah, so it's driving the Cup car is a lot different, because the car makes more downforce with speed. I guess the same with our car as well, but that car doesn't really pitch that much at all when you brake. So you pretty much for example, going into turn 1 in Indy, I don't know how many mile per hour we're doing, but I know when I press the brake pedal, I'm going to have the most amount of grip because I'm going at a high speed, so I have the most amount of downforce. So you literally just smash the pedal in a qualifying lap. Is the best way to extract speed out of the car, which is a lot different than what we do, I guess, down here. You want to avoid pitch down here, and those cars don't really pitch too much. So it's just the setup characteristics of the cars, and I guess that being because it's it makes all of its aero from underneath, so you can't have the car rolling around and soft, because you lose lap time.
So one last thing before we move on here, so you're saying that in the supercars you don't have that great spike or as big of a peak, and sort of the taper in your set as we do in a car. Is it more?
Yeah, I think we our cars only make, I think, 100 kilos of downforce now, which is probably like 180 pounds or something, at 200
wow.
kilometers an hour, which is, 130 mile per hour. And, so our cars don't make too much downforce now. So it's literally, you're just trying to slow down the weight transfer as much as possible. So you don't lose, rear grip under brakes, and you don't obviously lock the fronts when you first brake, because you're shifting so much weight, forward and back when you brake. But, when I was driving the Cup car, it's obviously a very heavy car, but it's very low to the ground. And, it's quite stiff, in nature, trying to, get the floor to work as best as possible. So, that's the biggest difference.
Man, that is fascinating. I love this stuff. I know it's early in the morning for you, but you've got two very interested listeners right here, and many thousands more on the podcast and such. I want to ask, we mentioned it. So you're going to race in Supercars again. There's been the talk that you're going to come over and do more Cup starts in 2024. What's your future? What's the vision for Brodie Kostecki in the years to come? Do we want to go on a tear of Supercars Championships, come back, try and come over to NASCAR full time? What's your vision and dream here in the next couple of years to pull off?
To be honest, I'm not really one to look too far ahead. I've, I guess, when I sort of finished up in America and come back home to Australia, I sort of just got used to just living day by day, to be honest, just trying to make a racing career, I guess. And so I've still got a lot of things that I want to achieve down here. And, I would like to win more championships down here. And, win, our Daytona 500, which is the Bathurst 1000. And, there's still a lot of boxes for me to tick down here, and, a lot of goals I want to, that I want to reach down here. But the good thing, I guess, down here is we race 12 rounds a year. So it allows me to go do, some more Cup starts and whatnot next year, which I'm, pretty excited about. And, hopefully we can get some of those finalized soon, which would be really cool. But yeah, I think it's just, I just love racing in general. And, I want to, I guess race a lot more throughout the year and just sort of fill up my calendar. I race a sprint car as well when I have time. So, I guess just race more in general and just enjoy it.
That's awesome. I love it. Yeah, that's the dream, man. Bathurst 1000, definitely a bucket list race for me to at least attend one time in my life. It looks absolutely epic. Before we let you go, and we really appreciate you coming on the Money Lap Live and doing this at the time of the day that it is over there, we've had a question of the day that we ask every guest, and I think you might be the most fascinating answer. So basically, if you had a choice and you could only choose one of them, driving an F1 car at Monaco or an Indycar at Indianapolis Motor Speedway Oval, which would you choose?
Oh, the Indycar for sure.
Ah, wow. What's the reason?
I just, I'm not really a massive F1 fan, and I think Indycar is probably one of the best categories to watch. So, definitely would rather race an Indycar. I don't think I'm going to fit in one at any time soon, to be honest.
Very cool. Thanks for that.
That's awesome. We thought Monaco would win outright. That's now 2-1 for Indianapolis. So, my man, congratulations. You're a champ. I'll never take that away from you. That has to be a great feeling. We really, really appreciate you coming on Money Lap Live, and look forward to meeting you in person when you're back over here racing, especially if you find yourself a welcome. I'll probably be there as well, just across the street. So we'll have to meet up sometime.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on the show.
Thanks, Brodie.
Hey, Parker Kligerman here. I haven't won every race I've competed in. I know it's a shocker, but one thing I'm hoping to do, get you to subscribe, like, and hit the bell icon below, because that helps us make this awesome Money Lap content. Also, join us for the live show, Wednesdays, 12 to 3 p.m. Eastern Time, where we dive into all motorsports live here on the Money Lap YouTube channel. Please join us. We need more than just our moms watching.